Hello, and welcome to Rampant Pyanodon episode 14. Today we will be working on fuel control. Let me explain what that is exactly. Before I explain what it is, I have to explain how our current fuel situation works. So there are certain buildings in PyMod, such as the glassworks and smelters, that use liquid fuel as well, a fuel. And there are here's the fuel index, and there's a bunch of different ones. I mean, there's like a ton of different ones that have different amounts of fuel values, right? So currently, how are we prioritizing it? This is how I'm currently doing it. I'm having a primary fuel source that comes in on the left and attaches to these buildings, and then these are leftover fuel sources on the right. Obviously, we want to use the leftover fuels first, because otherwise they just get vented before we use these ones. But doing this system is not really sustainable in the long run. This is because, as you can see, every single different fuel source has its own line and set of buildings for its set of products. So if this, as the game progresses, the smelter would kind of just expand infinitely large, and it's kind of a mess. What we're going to do today is build a system that takes a variable amount of fluids, both for primary fuel sources and for excess fuel sources, and we can bring them to any variable amount of machines. So basically any number of primary fuels, any number of secondary fuels, and bring them to any number of machines for any number of products. You might be thinking, wow, how are we going to do that? Well, it's right here, but I want to save the fuel control explanation for later in the episode when I actually implement it. For now, I'll just go over the very basics of it. Basically, the fuel control will be here, but then before that, we're going to do some shale oil processing, which is processing. These are going to be the primary fuels for our playthrough. So by taking shale oil, it produces, I think, like 3 different fluids that are very high fuel value, so very efficient. And that's made from kerogen, and I'm planning on having kerogen join the stack line. So I'm going to stack stone and stack kerogen and put them on the same line, and then later down the road here, obviously once we have our fuel control, we can go ahead and implement it into our glassworks and our smelters. So for now, we can go ahead and stack some stone. So the responsible thing to do would be to cut off the stone from the rest of the bus. Now, would this cause our entire base to stumble to a halt? We're using 366 stone a minute, so I'd say it probably would. But the biters haven't reappeared since I've turned them back on, so I don't really think that's much of an issue. So I guess what we'll do is we'll start by cutting off stone from the rest of the system, letting it drain out, then going to every single building or production area that uses stone, which is actually not that many, and making sure that the stone that goes in there is converted from stacked stone into normal stone. So we can go ahead and start with this. Okay, that was kind of a mess at the end, but I think it works. So what we've done is we've stacked stone on one side of the belt, and on the other side is the stacked kerogen. So they're nice and compressed now. All right, I just scoured the lines, and I think we're good. I think it worked out. So let's go ahead and mark stacked stone and kerogen is complete. And then next up, we can work on shale oil processing. Okay, well, so the first thing I got to do to get shale oil processing is to research kerogen processing. So let's research that first. We got to do electrolysis and then also shale oil. And there we go. So let's go ahead and see what we just researched. Okay, so the first thing we researched was kerogen processing, which gives us this retorter and the ability to make shale oil. And then as a prerequisite to shale oil development, I needed electrolysis, which gives us access to water, this electrolyzer, which does some water stuff. And then lastly, we get to shale oil development. This will allow us to turn our shale oil into the condensates, light oil, and heavy oil. And those are the 3 fuels we are going to use as our primary fuel sources. And to make these, probably this olefin plant thing, some kerosene, actually, which seems really good. Never mind, kerosene, condensates, and light oil will be my main products. And then this reformer as well. So let's go ahead and design something to extract the kerosene into shale oil into our main fuel sources. Okay, so to start off, I actually included me using the recipe, the factory search planner, the factory planner. I had a lot of trouble with this for some reason. I think it's because I had multiple products and I couldn't figure out how to do matrix solutions. Um, Here, as you can see, I'm just kind of figuring out how to build these things as close as possible, just kind of getting all the buildings down before I decide on the basic shape or the basic groupings. I put the retorters down, then I put the seam down next to it, then I just sort of kind of scrunch it all up nice and tight. And the top left corner, there's a lot of space left over there, so I decide, ooh, what will I do with all that space? I'm going to go ahead and put some turbines there and some decorations. But I realize I still have a lot of piping left to go, so then I immediately get rid of them. And I think that's it. Back to you. Okay, I think the shale oil processing works. Again, it has a few inputs, just kerosene, some fuel, water, and then out comes our three main gas sources, and then one excess gas fuel source. So kerosene, gasoline, and condensates, and then aromatics is our excess fuel. And as we can see, I'm just watching it. Everything seems to be running. The kerosene and the water combine to this beautiful, what is this, a retorter? I don't even know what's happening, but Pi did a fantastic job here. You can even see the niobium pipes. I have no idea what's happening, but it looks awesome. But the shale comes up here to these reformers, which also look awesome. And it reforms it into these three fuels, and then I have stuff to do with the light oil and the heavy oil. The light oil gets turned into aromatics and gasoline, and then the heavy oil gets oil finned into kerosene. And again, everything just looks beautiful, and it's running smoothly. So I think we're good to put this into the world. So let's go ahead and copy paste this and place it somewhere. And there we go. Shale oil processing is done. As you can see here, the oil fin plants aren't done because I actually need to make them out of storage tanks, which take duralumin. So I have to go make a temporary duralumin setup. But other than that, the inputs are here. We've added light oil, heavy oil, and aromatics to our fluid system. We will not be adding the other three main sources of fuel until there's another use for them, because there's no use in piping everything around unless I need to pipe it around. But yeah, that is all set. But let's go ahead and make a very, very temporary duralumin setup so I can just grab enough duralumin to make these olefin plants. Okie dokie, so here are the temporary duralumin setup. I'm about 2 duralumin away from grabbing all the duralumin I need so that I can craft the olefin plants and then place them down. And there we go, olefin plant placed down, and our shale oil is up and running. So we can go ahead and check this off, and then we can move on to the next thing on our list, which is fuel control. Alright, so this is fuel control, and it's actually a very simple setup. Basically, it consists of 2 columns, one column being the main fuel line, and the second column being the excess fuel line. So basically, we're using barrelers to barrel up all our fuels into fluid barrels. And basically, we just bring the fluid barrel and the excess fuel barrels down the line, and whenever we need to fuel something up with fluids, we just do a splitter which prioritizes the excess fluids, sort of like our normal raw coal versus excess burnable fuels line, and it sends it to this one barreler. And this one barrel can take any number of different types of barrels, different types of fuels, and it brings it in and it spits it out. And it's super configurable because I mean, like, oh, it's if we have like another smelter, right? Then all we got to do is bring this up like this, and then we're all set. Or if we want more barrelers, we just simply have to drag this over up like this. So this is the fuel control solution, and I'm so excited because it makes so much sense. Also, yeah, all the leftover fuels, leftover barrels will go up. And it'll be sent back to the barrelers to be used again. And then we'll make sure that we have some some chests to make sure that these are always full and that we don't back up the whole line. But that is basically fuel control. Let me decorate this up a little bit and then send it over. I wanted to give this example so you can see as soon as, we have gasoline and it switches to aromatics. So, I mean, the concept is very sound and it works. Just look at it. Aromatics, and now it's powered by kerosene. And now it's powered by aromatics again. I mean, it's just so awesome that we're able to just switch between multiple types of fuel like this. And yeah, anyways, back to decorating. Okay, I mean, something like this looks good enough to me, so I'll just go ahead and blueprint this over, and then we can build it in our world. And fuel control looks like a good name for it, and bam, there it is. So I've ported it over. We have all three of our main fuel sources. Again, the condensates, the kerosene, and the gasoline, and then we have 8 backup fuel sources. I kind of just ripped the ones out. I ripped them out of this old glassworks area and placed them over here. So now if we go ahead and just let this run, we can see that we will be producing, we're producing a ton of excess fuels. I actually love that a lot. What's in the blue barrel? Anthracene oil. That is so cool. But yeah, so now it's going to go down over here so that we can go ahead and check this off of our list. So let's go ahead and do that. And now that we have fuel control, we just need somewhere to put the fuel control. So let's go ahead and stuff it into a brand new glassworks and smelters, starting with a new glassworks primary. Building the new glassworks area will be pretty simple. We just need to get rid of this left side over here. And then all we have to do is add some unbarrelers over here. And that looks really good. The infrastructure is all set up. The only problem is that all this infrastructure has pushed it up super close to the bus, which I don't like. So let's go ahead and just move it downwards. And there we go. That looks much better. We have the fluids plugged in. Everything else is plugged in right here. You can see we have the excess fuels and the normal fuels coming in. And they are going into the burners. And we can see what they're using. So we're using gasoline. Ooh, gasoline. Anthracene oil. Switches over to hydrogen for a split second. Stays on anthracene oil for a little bit. Oh, condensates. Wonderful. Meanwhile, you're using anthracene, you're using gasoline, anthracene into kerosene. I haven't seen that one yet. Oh, anthracene, hydrogen, back into anthracene, into kerosene. So, yeah, it works. Looks like we have our variable number of primaries, our variable number of fluid, our secondary fuels going into a variable number of different machines and different products. I would say that this fuel control has been a success. When they're all done, it spits out the what's it called? The barrels, and it sends it all the way back up here so that they can be rebarreled. And I have a nice backlog. I made sure these two are super full, and they are super full. So the barrels will come back in, it'll feed back, and we shouldn't have any slowdown whatsoever. This is actually one of my favorite builds so far. Yeah, it looks like it's working beautifully. We have 6. Again, this is still infinitely expandable if we just go to the left. I figured 6 for each product was good enough for now. But yeah, let's go ahead and check this off. Glassworks primaries is all set. So, we've come all the way from... Oh, I got lost. Stacking stone, carriage it on the bus, shale oil processing, implementing fuel control, and now we're using it for the first time in our glassworks primaries. All we have left to do for this episode is implement the same system for smelters, and that'll be it. Just kidding, actually my glassworks deadlocked. It seems like because until this machine is full of a certain fluid, it can't pass it on to the next machine. So I guess let's redesign it. And there we go. Looks to be working to me. All I did really was move the barrelers from the top to the side, and it looks like it's working. Anyways, let's put the smelters down. And by smelters, I just mean a singular smelter. I did want to have a new smelting array. Obviously, it was going to be next to all the other metal processing, but I couldn't really figure out where to place it for now. It may change in the future because my rock episode is next, and I don't know where I'm placing that. And I don't think I need to smelt anything else for the remainder of this season. So I've just elected to place a singular smelter here. Uh, just like relatively close to anything. It's going to be very temporary, very near the bus. Once I make my new smelting setup, I'll get rid of it. But anyways, I have the inputs here all set up. It's just again, the fuels and the barrels going back. But I actually needed to get the metals to it. So copper we have on the bus, but aluminum plate we don't have on the bus. So as you see here, similar to the stone and Keragen, we're going to have to stack the copper and then put the aluminum on the bus. So let's start by stacking copper. And there we go. So that is duralumin. We finally we replaced again. I never explained this part, but I wanted to stack the aluminum and copper. I wanted to start stacking stuff on the bus to save space to not let it get wider. And there we go. We now have duralumin. All we need is a place to store it, and that will be right here. Right here. We actually don't need that much, so let's just do that much for now. And yeah, let's go ahead and check some of the stuff off. So, stacking copper, aluminum bus, and smelters, and duralumin done. So let's check those off. And there we go. So, this has been a fantastic episode. We've done a lot, from stacking stone all the way to our new fuel control and getting duralumin, temporary duralumin. We are so close to Pi Science 1 and glassware. Next episode, we will be working on rocks. And of course, I'd love to give a special thanks to all my patrons. John Boy, Maestuzo Irrespetuzo, Ima, and Sterling. Your fishing dock has started growing trees. I'll see you guys in the next episode.